Rachel.
Rachel, you're working with the pro-life group?
Created Equal, yes.
Created Equal, yes. Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, so especially in my work with Created Equal, I see a lot of apathy with Christians, just in their general beliefs. On the issue of abortion, on other issues like you talked about last night, lots of people I see don't know how to defend their faith. Even more than that, almost I think I've seen people don't realize how important it is to know how to defend their beliefs. First of all, why do you think that is? And secondly, what can I as a Christian do about activating people to, I guess, know how to give a good defense for their beliefs?
One question we always ask people, we asked it at our seminary, what's the greatest problem in America today? Is it ignorance or apathy? And one student said, I don't know and I don't care. It's very hard to make apathetic people care. Sometimes the only time that people care about something, in fact we talked about this last night, is when it becomes personal. If your kid gets cancer, you might not have cared a thing about cancer. But once your kid gets cancer, you suddenly become an expert on it, don't you? If your kid goes off to college, a Christian, and they call up one day and say, Mom, Dad, I don't believe in God anymore, suddenly you get real interested in evidence. Right? I don't know of a way, other than prayer, to get people to care about things they don't want to care about. Well, let me take that back. I think if you can intrigue them a little bit by saying this is the kind of material that will help you learn what the meaning of life is and how to live your life better and how to know really what life's about and where you should be going, this is the kind of material that can help you. And if you've ever had any doubts, this is a good material that can help you. If you're a Christian, apologetics, which doesn't mean you're saying you're sorry for something, it means to give it evidence for, is actually commanded. It's not an option. Peter says, always be ready to give an answer. Christ says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. It's the greatest commandment. Paul says, demolish arguments and take every thought captive to Christ. Jude says, defend the faith. I mean, you can go on and on. All these writers in the New Testament are saying, you better know why this is true. So it's not an option. We're supposed to know why it's true. So you can use that. You can use the practical way of just saying, hey, you're going to need this someday. In fact, the best time to get evidence for God is when you don't need evidence for God. Right? The best time to get a friend is when you don't need a friend. The best time to flood-proof your house is before the rain starts. So I think there was a guy that said something like, if you build your house on a rock, it's something better than on the sand. You guys heard of that? Some guy said that somewhere. So do it now. Get prepared now before the storm comes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Rachel, and thanks for the work you're doing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's your name?
I'm Alan.
Hey, Alan. How you doing?
What's up? So one of the problems I had, or not necessarily a problem, but like you never really seem to rule out the idea of like multiple gods, or like all your arguments don't really seem to, I guess, refute that idea of like multiple gods. Or,
well, why are there not multiple gods? Or
yeah,
why is it not possible?
Why are there not
polytheism? In other words. Okay, because if you have multiple gods, they're created. They're not eternal. If you go back philosophically, you're going to realize, and Aquinas does this, and even Aristotle does this, you're going to realize there can only be one infinite. Because in order to have a difference, you can't have two infinites, because in order for there to be a difference, one has to lack what the other one has, but if one of them lacks what the other one has, then the one is not infinite. So there can't be two infinites, there can only be one infinite. Also, you could use what's called Occam's razor, which says you don't multiply causes beyond necessity. If you only need one God to create the universe, it makes more sense to say there's only one God than to say you've got all these multiple gods. So there's a couple of ways of coming at that.
Okay, but like then why does God have to be infinite then? Like why can't God be not infinite?
Well, that would be a finite God, and he'd be created then. He wouldn't be a uncreated being.
But he could still be uncreated if he's finite. Is that
no?
Right?
He's contingent then if he's finite. In other words, he's not necessary. His existence and essence don't connect. He is a created being if he's finite. If If he's not infinite, he's created or contingent.
Okay. All right. I'll think about it.
We can talk more, Al. It's all right. Yeah, some of this stuff is like trying to gargle peanut butter. I'm with you on that. All right. Okay. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Brennan Corrigan.
Hey, Brian. How you doing?
Sorry, Brennan.
Oh, Brendan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Everybody gets it wrong. It's okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
This is Steve. Thank you. But this isn't directly related to the crimes argument, but it's something that interested me about what you said about scientists, about how they'll like fudge evidence to get.
Some will.
Yeah.
Obviously
Yes.
not
Sorry,
all.
I didn't mean to generalize
Yeah.
that. But you said like
Anybody who disagrees with me is fudging data.
Oh.
Let's just make that for the record. Okay. Go ahead.
And
Go ahead, Al.
All right. Thank you. And yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. How did that happen?
I'm trying to keep all my names straight again every 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Brendan. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you were saying how some scientists will fudge data because they're like afraid of their funding. And,
Losing their funding.
Yeah, losing their funding. And like interestingly, that's like something that I've heard like newly atheist friends say about Christian parents. It kind of reminded me of that.
What do you mean?
Like the idea that like a lot of my like Christian or otherwise religious friends will say like I'm afraid to tell my parents that I'm an atheist because like they'll do this to me or they'll punish me in this way. And so like if it's such a problem that scientists are fudging data because they're afraid of the consequences, how do we make sure the same thing isn't happening on the Christian side?
Atheist Richard Feynman, who is a physicist, said this: the easiest person to fool is yourself. Because we suppress the truth and unrighteousness to go our own way. That's what Paul said. And so we have to be sure that we're always checking ourselves to make sure that we're not just believing something because we find it attractive or convenient. In fact, it was Pascal who said people almost invariably base their beliefs not on proof, but on what they find attractive. I mean, this sword can cut both ways. You could say an atheist is an atheist sometimes because that person finds it attractive. There's nobody above him who has authority over him. But a Christian could also be guilty of saying, I just find it attractive that there's a God up there who is protecting me, and one day I'll be with him and my loved ones in heaven. So the sword can cut both ways. We've just got to be honest with one another and make sure that we're believing what we believe in, not because we find it convenient, although it might be, but because it's true.
I'm not sure how that answers my question about like kids who are afraid to come out to their parents in order to have that discussion with them.
Well, they might fear that their parents are going to cut them off. That's a legitimate fear. But I'm not sure how that relates to whether Christianity is true or not.
I mean, I didn't mean it to be. Sorry.
Okay.
It was just a question of how do you decide that how do you decide which side is doing things out of fear and which side is doing?
Well, maybe what you're doing here is you're just giving another example where people might suppress the truth in order to maintain money, sex, or power. Those are the three things that most people get in trouble for: money, sex, or power. Is there an election coming up next week? Do these things keep coming up? Money, sex, and power? You ever notice that? Yeah. You can give a number of examples. This is probably a good example, Brennan. Yeah, that people who are Christians and now atheists are not going to tell their parents because they want the funding to continue. And it might be that a scientist may not tell or may fudge the data, not tell the truth to the people funding them because they want money to keep coming in. Yeah, that's just another example of the same principle.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You got a periodic table shirt. Check this guy out.
Biochemistry.
Biochemistry. What's your name?
Nathan.
Hey, Nathan.
So, I've always wondered this question. How do you explain the fact that if there is an intelligent designer that created everything, why there's so many mistakes in nature, just inherent flaws?
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Cancer.
Oh, okay. Why is there a cancer? Yeah, that seems to be against the design. Okay.
No, it's an inherent flaw in nature.
Right.
The reason we get cancer is because chemistry is imperfect. Indeed, replication makes mistakes. And water can cause cancer.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Well, from a Christian perspective, we believe that the world is fallen, that the world was created in a state of innocence, and then through sin, we have a fallen world. But that would be the theological answer to the question. The problem with an atheistic answer to the question, because sometimes the question goes like this, and correct me if this is not the direction you're going in. Sometimes the question from the atheist is, well, I could be a better engineer than God. For example, why does my back go out? I mean, I could build a better back than God. I could build a back with titanium bones, and it wouldn't go out as easily, right? Well, why didn't God do that? Why didn't God Teflon coat our arteries so we don't have blood clots and those kind of things, right? That's typically the way the question. Is that similar to what you're saying? Okay, yeah. Well, there's a couple of ways of answering this. First of all, the first way I just mentioned, this is a fallen world. But secondly, in a time-space continuum, all design involves trade-offs. In other words, if God had made us with titanium bones, yeah, we might have stronger bones, but it'd be harder to move around. Okay? An iPhone. You go, man, I got to charge this iPhone every 37 minutes, right? Why? Why don't they make an iPhone with a better battery? Well, they could, but the iPhone might be this big. It's called an iPad. Okay, that big, right? It lasts longer. What the Apple engineers are doing is they're trading off convenience for power, or power for convenience. Because there's physical and electronic constraints in this time-space continuum. But it would be ludicrous to say that because the battery doesn't last as long as you want it to, therefore nobody designed the iPhone. Right? Things are still designed even if they break down. My car is designed, my Hyundai is designed, but it's got flaws.
So then the designer isn't perfect.
No, the designer might be perfect. That's the third way of answering it. The designer might have a reason for wanting things to break down. You can't know that something is designed improperly unless you know the intentions of the designer. Like, for example, you could say, well, man, my VW Bug only holds 4 people. Why doesn't it hold 15? Well, because the intention of the VW Bug designer was to hold 4 people, not 15. And it's got better gas mileage than the 15-passenger van. But you could complain about the 15-passenger van. Why does this thing get better gas mileage? Because there's a trade-off between size and fuel economy. And you have to know the intention of the designer to know whether or not the guy messed up.
So then the laws of nature before the fall were perfect? Or they were different than they are now? I mean,
well, we're speculating. We don't know for sure.
If there was no such thing as cancer or anything else, they have to be different.
Maybe. I'd imagine that'd probably be the case. Or there was some difference. I don't know what the difference was.
Yes, there has to be. Yeah, it has to be, because it's just an inherent flaw of chemistry. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as perfect.
But why doesn't everybody get cancer then, if it's an inherent flaw in chemistry?
It's just chance. You have a certain chance of getting cancer, so some people end up getting it and some people don't. Okay.
But chance itself is not the cause. Chance is a word we use to describe mathematical possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we say chance, we really mean we don't know.
No, we're saying it's possible, but it all depends on if you happen to be the unlucky person that it happens to.
Okay, but that wouldn't explain it. That would just...
I can tell you how it happens if you want.
Okay,
I can explain it. I'm just saying that it's an event that happens at a certain rate. And because it happens at a certain rate, some people get it and some people don't, because they just got unlucky and it happened to them. Mm-hmm. So the point I'm making is...
Well, let me say one other thing. It's not unlucky that it happened to them. There was some kind of cause. It wasn't luck.
Yeah, it was the laws of chemistry.
Yeah, it wasn't luck. There was some kind of cause that caused it. Or some kind of, maybe something they did, or whatever it is.
Or water, or lots of things.
Okay.
So, so the laws of nature have to be different than before.
Okay. Thanks. Good shirt. Yes, sir. What's your name?
My name is Jacob.
Hey, Jacob.
I've heard that apologists have often used, and you actually used this in your talk tonight as well, that the Nazis and the extermination of the Jews was inherently evil. What then do you say about the extermination of the Canaanites?
All right, excellent question. Let's deal with the extermination of the Canaanites. Stand by for Victor, Victor. All for Clarence, Clarence. Roger, Roger. Now we're getting into the I don't have enough faith to be an atheist material, ladies and gentlemen, so if you'll indulge me. Okay. is God immoral for killing the Canaanites? You guys know